Should we
Yeah,
start over?
yeah. Hey, so everyone, sorry for we had technical difficulties, so we already started recording and then we kind of had to start over again. But we have a special edition of Jagged Edge. John's not here, but I have my friend, future Cowboy Scott, the great odds, which my father-in-law actually is a Cowboys fan. So I actually
Oh, is
kind of
he?
do wanna, yeah, he has the Cowboys like cushion on the chair. He has the Cowboys sneakers. I remember for one of his game for his birthday. They were facing the Saints, and then he won and they got a Trayvon Diggs jersey with his wife. So I feel any Cowboys news I can know, I can always use that to talk to him. So I'm always down
Oh,
for the
that's
scoops.
that's awesome.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
so Oz, tell the people a little bit about yourself before we get started. We're just gonna run through a quick mock draft, talk about the draft as a whole, some players we like, and
Absolutely.
just kind of talk ball. But before we get started, Oz, tell the people about yourself.
Yes, sir. My name is Oswaldo Quinones. We've been talking about doing this for a while, especially now that I have my own podcast. You guys tap into the War Room Sessions podcast. That's all NFL draft, but very centered around, of course, the Dallas Cowboys being the local team for us, with my co-host, Tim's That Dude. Uh, but man, I've been doing this thing for, let's see, I've had an official board since 2016, where I've actually stuck it, gone in Excel and done this. Since 2016, I think it was the Zeke draft. I remember clearly because I remember who was my number one pick, my number one ranked player, and it was Miles Jack that year.
Jags
Um,
legend.
yes, Jack's legend. That's why I wanted to mention that. Um, But yeah, man, I've been doing this for a long time. I've honed in on my craft, being able to learn from mistakes and then listen to others and how certain things are to be done. As far as building your board, how to look at certain positions, because you know, I feel like each guy has their own positions they kind of tune into. So there's certain guys I look in individually for a specific position, like a Brandon Thor for an O line, a Matt Waldman for
Yeah.
receiver, anything like that. So learning from those guys, and this year's been pretty awesome because I've gotten pretty close with some of the guys around this area that cover the Cowboys. So intel has been awesome. Opinions have been awesome. So it's been a good process, but you know, we're 48 hours out, and I still can't tell you what's going to happen after probably pick four, after pick three, honestly, because I think pick four, we'll start there real quick. Pick four has been unanimously for a long time being Will Campbell, the tackle from LSU. Whenever you have a consensus like that, it could really go 50-50. It's never 100% because
Yeah.
50% for sure could be Campbell. The other 50%, the field. And they've been definitely linked to other names. They could definitely pick an arm on Mimbu instead of Will Campbell, considering that Mike Vrabel's an arm length kind of guy at tackle. He's one of those guys. So, but they've already come out themselves, and I think it was a press conference saying that Will Campbell was an offensive tackle. So that might not be an issue, but I still wonder if they're that close, like a lot of people have them. Um, do they lean towards their more prototype guy that they're looking for? So that could be an option. I think Ashton Genty could be an option considering, you know, you have your top three guys, you know, Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, not including Cam Ward, in that discussion. Ashton Genty's the third best player in the draft after those two guys. So if you have an opportunity to pick the third best player at the draft and you're up there versus taking a different position, especially if there's a grade gap. They might be 3 and 5 as far as position, but the grade is very different from the next guy. So it just really depends on what they want to do there. Jalen Walker's been linked to them throughout the process. There's a lot of fans of his. His
We
his
can talk
ceiling.
about the Jalen Walker discussion soon because that was for a while that was one of the big debates amongst the fans. So
Jaguars. Mhm.
yeah, so
I don't see that one in play for you guys. So if you're not a fan of him, rest easy. That one's not in play for you guys.
well, yeah, I guess we can kind of just go a little bit as you hinted, just kind of just go straight into the draft. So yeah, so no trades probably because we know the Browns. I mean, we
Hmm.
know the Titans, they're gonna take Cam Ward, which
Hmm.
obviously I know. it's not the best quarterback year. I think
Hmm.
they still like I understand why they're taking Cam Ward.
Hmm.
Part of me just kind of wishes that they weren't taking quarterback. At the same time, it's not a he's not, the traditional number one overall prospect. So even though I
No.
think that he has some good traits, I just hate that I have to root against him, after he didn't
Yeah.
get traded. I don't want him to
Very
be
likable
traded.
guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like he's such a likable dude. Now I have to root against him, but I guess obviously we'll see because he doesn't have the prototypical number one overall size measurables, huge production,
Yeah.
but just for this quarterback class, I mean, hey.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, if ask them to compare it to last year's class, and we're in a pretty lengthy group chat with other folks, and they asked me that same question. I'm like, um, Cam Ward would be for me if when I had them stacked, it was Caleb, Jaden, Gap, Drake May, Penix, Nix, all three together, pretty stacked close, and then McCarthy another round later. Um, if I would put a stack and put where Cam Ward would be, he will probably be right behind Jaden Daniels for so he will be the third quarterback last year.
Which, yeah, it's still pretty good in hindsight, so I
Hmm.
guess we'll see. And now with the Browns at two, we've seen obviously the huge shift in everyone thinking it's going to be Travis Hunter, which who's going to be their quarterback for the future? Are they just going to, is it really just about to be Tyler Shuck in the second round? Hey, who knows? But it does seem pretty likely they're going to take Travis Hunter, which I'm a little bit sad. I mean, I think he'll be, I don't want to say he's quarterback proof. I think he'll definitely help whichever quarterback. We think they're going to play receiver first because I think Andrew
Yeah,
Berry was coming out and saying he's going to be receiver for us first,
yeah.
which,
And the thing I always say when it comes to quarterbacks and you're picking that high, if you don't love the quarterback, don't take them. Take the player because you won't miss with the player. If you're not in love with that quarterback, don't force it. Don't force love a guy. Because nine times out of ten it doesn't work out. Um, give credit to Sean Payton. The whole time through, he was Bo Nix from the get-go. I heard that one back in December. That's Sean Payton done all the homework on Bo Nix. He knew he was going to be in position to get him. So that was his guy. But also, you look at the situation that he's in. He probably went to the perfect system for his skill set. Because I don't think Bo Nix would have done the things in Washington that he did in Denver. So it just really depends on a lot of times the
yeah,
fit.
scheme, just how you,
And Cleveland looked at it, and the Giants kind of view it in a similar way as, the next quarterback probably doesn't fit me, or the guy I do have as the second quarterback is a guy that I might be able to get in a trade up scenario or even sit and pick at the top of the second round.
yeah, I mean, we'll see a lot how much they do with the quarterback. I'm not obviously, I understand a lot of why people are talking about the Shadur, and yes, I do think that like his current grade wise doesn't translate to him being picked high in this class.
Hmm.
I still think there is at least a decent gap between Shadur and the other quarterbacks where I still feel that he's going. My guess is that I feel even if he doesn't go in the top 10, I don't think he goes all the way at Pittsburgh. I think some team would at least try to trade up for it just because of quarterback nature. That's just
Yeah.
my guess. And I think that definitely there's a lot of truth to his flaws about the offense and that I do think at the same time they're going to I mean part of it is a team going to be scared because if Shadur's not playing great, are they going to try to hire Deion Sanders to replace them?
Yeah.
Possible, but I do think that just as a quarterback prospect, though, teams are going to say, okay, this guy at least has a floor they can work with and from go from there. But that we can save
Yeah.
that conversation for when we get to there. So you can take
Yeah.
Travis Hunter now, and then the Giants. They don't think they're going to take Shadur Sanders.
I
Is
do
John
not.
Mara going to intervene? I still doubt it, but
No, that real quick on that with the Giants is Albert Breer, not Albert Breer, Todd McShay's come out and other people have confirmed it a little bit in their own way, especially the Giants local people. There's a big split in between on thoughts on Sanders. There's people in the personnel department that actually like Shedeur Sanders. But Brian Dable is not a Shedeur Sanders guy. And the head coach carries a large stick in that room, especially your
yeah,
guy. You
If you're gonna
know,
try to fit
Joe
the scheme
Shane and
around
Brian
him.
Dable are fighting for their jobs. And if you're gonna pick a guy that I'm supposed to go to war with on my last hurrah, and you're gonna pick a guy I don't like, I just don't see that happening. That's why from the get-go, I always knew that I just had a feeling that he just wasn't in play for them. I just never got the feel that that's where the Giants will go, even at three in a trade down or a trade up. I'll be shocked if he's a New York Giant. Even if he falls to them in the second round, if Jackson Dart's there, I think they will take Jackson Dart.
Quay would
I
be
really
so
do.
excited for that.
I really do. I think, people have come out saying that's who Brian Dable's preferred guy will be Jackson Dart.
Well,
You
That'll
know,
be
Jackson Brian Dable to get it hasn't gotten to choose his quarterback. Daniel Jones, he was stuck with Daniel Jones. He had no choice. That was the guy that was given to him. Uh, Using that situation, you kind of lean towards, all right, who does the head coach want? Because at the end of the day, he has to be the one that coaches him.
yeah, that's valid. So we'll take Abdul Carter,
Hmm.
see if they're gonna how Thibodeau's gonna feel. People was talking about maybe they trade him, which I mean, it's the draft, so no one really knows for certain. But
Hey, real quick, Jamal, are you sharing your screen? 'Cause I'm not able to see your draft.
I'm sharing the screen, but I can just do a obviously I can do a recap at the end, even if you have any questions. So
Okay.
I can see, yeah, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, which now leads us to Patriots at 4. And you talked a little of that conversation at the start of maybe it's not Will Campbell, it could be Membu. I mean, I don't think it'll be Mason Graham because just off like
No.
measurables where they invested. Maybe it is Ashton Genty. I don't think it would be a test, so probably would just be between. There's also some rumblings that maybe Colton Miller gets traded to the Patriots and they take Ashton Genty. I don't know how much because you never really know what you know. He did play under Josh McDaniels,
Hmm.
so if Oakland,
It
I
would be
mean, yeah, if
interesting.
Las Vegas, sorry, if they were interesting trying to trade, maybe they wanted to get a tackle and they trade Colton Miller,
That's de-
possibly.
that's definitely a thing. That's definitely I could definitely see that one. Just right now, it's hard to predict player trades, especially like 48 hours from the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I've
You would
seen a few smoke from that, so we can obviously try to
you need that trade to happen today,
yeah,
kind of
so
thing.
we can see how it goes. But I guess for now we can pick Will Campbell unless you want to lean another way. I wouldn't be opposed if it was Membu or Genty.
Until I know more, I'll stick with Will Campbell because that just seems too consensus. But I wouldn't shock me at all if Mimbu is the one they go with.
Okay, well, yeah, this leads to obviously big talking. We've been talking just about it, all this Jag smoke recently, and in just the past week. And then I don't know, you didn't see last week, but we had a good friend of ours, Jacksonville local reporter John Shipley, and I've just been listening to a lot of his rumblings because,
Hmm.
he's somebody who's very plugged in with the old regime. Now with the new regime, nobody really knows anything. They just try to do
Hmm.
as good of a job as they can of being as radio silent as possible, which,
Yeah.
as we can see, has led to a ton of smoke, it led to a ton of rumors. You know, I think part of it is a lot of the gent because even shout out to John. I was listening to him today to kind of figure out what more to say, talking about this pick. He thinks that a lot of the smoke, not that they aren't very high on Genty, because I do think that they are, but a lot of the smoke about them leaking could also be a way to try to bait up a trade for a team. Maybe Chicago
Yeah.
wants to trade up for Genty ahead of the Raiders. You want to try to
Yeah.
trade up because if there's any other player that you could try to trade up for in this draft, probably the best, like outside of Travis and Abdul, the player teams might actually want to trade up for would be Ashton Genty. He's the third best player. Maybe the Jags want to take Ashton Genty for themselves. My thing is just talking about this pick because I've thought a lot about how I feel about 5. I still think they're going to be very high on Mason Graham for a number of reasons. Reason number one is that they didn't, I know they want to address defensive line in this draft. They don't have to do it at 5 because it is a deep draft for it, but they didn't sign any free agents at the defensive line. So they definitely want to draft at least probably one defensive tackle, one defensive edge, and then maybe, one or two more guys extra. So they're going to draft a defensive lineman. I think based on what the scouting staff is interested in, they're not as athleticism focused. They want to try to do a lot of the Rams things that they've tried to scout, they want to use, in-game scores, GPS data rather than 40 times and combine metrics. They want to really track in-game stuff. So I feel if they'd be high on Mason Graham by watching his tape, they wouldn't have really changed that much during the combine. How high did they are on they on Mason Graham? I can't say for certain. I think he's in consideration. Yeah, even John Shipley was saying that it's consideration. He thinks for five, it's three players. He thinks if Full Campbell's there, that's the pick, but it's either between Mason Graham or Ashton Genty. So I understand the reasoning for both sides, in that Mason Graham plays a more valuable position, but Genty is the better player. So I'm really just my gut still tells me it's Mason Graham. I won't be upset if it's Ashton Genty. I think Tet to me feels the smoke feels a little bit fake. So I think if they actually do stick here and take a player, it's between Mason Graham or Ashton Genty. So I know most people would say Ashton Genty's the better prospect player. So if you want to do that for chaos, then I'm fine with it. If you think
Yeah.
my gut feeling of what I think they will take, try to be more predictive, I still think it'll be Mason Graham, just because I feel, as I said, if they're really high on him throughout the process, they wouldn't really be off-putting. We talked about how his effort during certain plays, obviously, I don't know if they talked to him at the combine, so and his interview
Hmm.
process. I know they have somebody on staff who's at Michigan. Their Michigan outside linebackers coach. He's on their staff now, so maybe they have a little bit of insight onto how Mason Graham played last year at Michigan. I think they have. I mean, obviously, he didn't work defensive tackle, coach, but even just still being in that coaching staff room, being around the players, I think he might have a little bit of an inside edge. So that also could be a reason why they may feel comfortable on Mason Graham, because they have a coach at the building. So I'm fine to take him. We could still take Genty if they feel, because I'm not going to be upset if they take Ashton Genty and then he goes off for
Yeah.
like 1,300 yards his rookie year. I'm not going to be mad at it, because even though he's a running back in this class, I think he is the better talent. But I also think for like their first pick, they probably want to set the tone, set the trenches, because I know with Gladstone and Cohen, they're coaches' kids, so they focus a lot on trenches too. And Cohen's talking a lot about the offensive line, and they've done a lot of work for the offensive line. But even listening to Tony Baselli when he was on the radio with Pete Prisco, and he would talk about how the interior defensive line was soft. And I think that even if they don't take Mason Graham now, they're taking a defensive tackle in the first two picks. I think almost guaranteed.
Yeah. The
Sorry for
you
the ramble.
asked, no, no, you're good. You, the Jacksonville Jaguars have been the most discussed team for the past 48 hours now.
Yeah, I'm even going back to like
And
last week.
it's gotten enough to where people down here in Dallas who actually are pretty locked in with Jacksonville in certain areas, especially some of your scouts have been there for a while now. And the ones that talk a lot now that the boards are set are the scouts and the medical people. Um, the one thing we've heard, at least on this end, is Jacksonville's looking for touchdowns. They are trying to help their quarterback. They want to put their quarterback in best position. This starts the new regime there, and it'll be nice to have a Mason Graham, but you have Trayvon Walker, you have Josh Allen Hines. Armstead was kind of, I would say, a disappointment for you guys. Just I don't know if he lived up to that
Yeah,
contract that he got, but
he did he
he's
played
still
a lot
there.
on the edge more than, because that was a coaching staff and him thing, like they're both kind of in tandem, and then it didn't work out. I mean, he kind of
Yeah,
when he played defensive tackle, he was definitely better. He wasn't
yeah. This was more
elite
natural
though.
position.
So yeah, I
I think
mean,
it was just dumb to play him out at
they,
edge.
I know some people aren't a fan. They have Mason Smith, who, draft grade aside, I think he had some flashes. I'm not going to say he's the future at that position, but they
Yeah,
have bodies. They just don't have a
they have
game
bodies there.
changer. But at the same time, would they want to go for touchdown maker and help Trevor? I wouldn't be. I understand that logic to a T, because I think Genty just he just gives them such a high floor
Yeah,
from
because
okay.
Gladstone coming from Les Snead, and I know Les Snead pretty well as far as how he likes to do things. he's gonna take the best player. He's gonna take the best player regardless of need or anything like that. Or give me the best guy. I mean, they tried hard
To
to
get
get up
Brock
and
Bowers,
try to
yeah.
draft Brock Bowers.
Yeah,
So
that
they
honestly. So
and
it's
they didn't have a need really at they had a bigger need. They had to replace Aaron Donald.
and they still just
Um,
so I,
the board fell to Fayette well, but
you know what?
you know,
That honestly, that's gonna make me. I'll pick Ashton Genty just sort of based off what you said, where
yeah. And
if
Brian
he
Broaddus, who's a
oh,
local guy here, he's a former scout with the Dallas Cowboys and Super Bowl champion with the Packers, who now does radio here. And he's gotten the Jaguars guys pretty locked in the last couple of years. And he thinks if Genty's there, that's where they're gonna go.
okay, well, yeah, I'm not upset with Genty. I think Genty there is a lot more realistic
Mhm.
than having Tet, just because I mean I don't think Tet's the super high effort they said intangibly rich a lot. I don't think Tet is. I think he's a very good
They
player and would
they will take
complement.
Tyler Warren before they take Terrell
I
McMillan.
actually think, yeah, Tyler Warren to me is more intangibly rich than Ted, and I
Mhm.
feel in a trade down maybe, but
Yes. If they
for
trade,
so
I'll say this: if they trade down, Tyler Warren will be probably the guy they trade down for, unless Kelvin Banks is there as well. And we'll talk about Kelvin Banks here shortly.
yeah, I
But
was re-listening to your offensive line and just your thoughts on Kelvin Banks and your which I do think he would maybe fit in the scheme to play more power gap, but we'll see. So now going to the Raiders, Jason's team. Well,
mhm.
obviously Genti not on the board, and I think I still think there's a good chance they get Genti. If they don't get Genti,
I
we've
don't think they
heard
will
them
take
talk.
Gentry if he was on the board. To be honest with you,
Well, do you think they
that's
would just
that.
go specifically for offensive line? I mean,
I, Jason doesn't believe me, but offensive line and defensive line lately have been the bigger buzz. I don't think they're a McMillan team. I know other people want to connect them there, but they really haven't given an indication that they will want to go wide receiver, but they could always surprise. Mimbu's name's been hot there. And that goes back to the Colton Miller thing. Even if it's not to New England, could Colton Miller get moved, especially with a contract due?
yeah, I mean,
Um,
well, I know Membu
but
plays right tackle, Coleman plays left, but I
mhm.
guess there's been a lot of Membu smoke too as well. So I'm fine to just draft Membu. I think that's probably the most likely option.
Yeah,
And then
I
sorry,
will pick
Jason, that you
Mimbu
didn't
there right
get
now.
Genti. And then going to the Jets, who I have a friend who's a diehard Jets fan of mine. I know there's a lot of Tyler Warren talk. I still think that they might be
That might
interested
be
in
Mason
Mason.
Graham.
Yeah, I think Mason Graham, if he's there, I think
Yeah,
this might be his floor. I think, getting him next to Quinnen, Aaron Glenn, it's gonna
yeah.
be I think he'd be great in that room.
I'm perfectly
So
good with Mason Graham there. I think that will fit what Aaron Glenn wants to get things started, being the
and then
defensive
so
guy
yeah, now
over the tight
Carolina,
end.
which I think that they'll take Jalen Walker, but I want the Panthers to take Mike Green more than Jalen Walker, which
I don't see
there's been
that
a
one.
ton of Jalen Walker connections at 8. It's the most likely pick we've seen. I just think in
Hmm.
terms of what Carolina needs off the edge, getting getting Mike Green would just be like perfect for that rotation. But I think they're going to take.
The one other thing I'll add to Carolina, though, Jalen Walker's very good choice there. Very good bet
I think,
there.
yeah, he's a good with Evero and like the scheme, so I
But
see that.
oh no, yeah, I don't. They haven't been in on McMillan. I even asked again a week ago about McMillan to Carolina. There's just nothing there for McMillan. But the other name, and Steven, who obviously is a Panthers fan, and I've told him from the get-go, they like Jalen Walker, but they also really like Michael Williams. And that group over there does value the arm length.
Oh, they're
One
they're they're
they're a
bulky
size
boned.
people. So, let's put Jalen Walker there for now, but do not be shocked come draft day. That's a Michael Williams spot.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it's kind of similar vibes.
Mhm.
I see as someone who dealing with Trent Baalke and his obsession with arm length and athleticism rather than proven production. I
Mhm.
understand both sides of the coin where, you're trying to
Yeah.
get a guy with NFL coaching, but there's no guarantee that he'll be able to get better at the higher competition. So
Hmm.
I mean with Jalen Walker, I hope he turns out to be good. I'm just I'm a little bit iffy, but I don't think there hasn't been as much smoke. 2 weeks ago, there was a ton of smoke between him and Mason Graham.
Yeah.
So I'm really just glad that we're almost done with draft season. So Saints at 9.
This is the fun
We don't
part.
think they're
Cool.
going to take Shadur, but
Here's the fun part. This is where it could get interesting because their pick could be really determined by what Carolina does. Let's say Jalen Walker goes 8. I think there's a good shot that McMillan's the pick at 9.
hmm,
And if he and Jalen Walker is there, I think Jalen Walker's the pick because they're big fans of Jalen Walker. And Mickey Loomis, who's the GM there. Funny thing is about the way he drafts. If you have a raw edge rusher
he's
that's a
interesting.
freakish athlete of all,
I feel like Shamar Stewart also makes a ton of sense for the
Shamar
Saints.
Stewart makes a lot of sense. But I'm gonna stick with this one with Brian Broaddus, who's again, he knows that area well too. He's saying if Walker's there, that's probably who they take. If he's not there, then McMillan. In this scenario, did we take Walker at 8?
Yeah, we took Jalen Walker at 8.
Okay, let's put McMillan there then.
Ted to the Saints. I mean, you have Olave. Ted can play outside. I mean, I'm
Shaheed.
not. Yeah, I think Shaheed is a deep threat. I think that could definitely give a nice balance. So Chicago
Mhm.
with 10. I know a lot of people obviously have mocked them Genty as his floor as well. I'm curious what you think here. I did a mock and I
We
gave
can't
them
trade,
Walter
right?
Nolan. We
Mhm.
can. Actually no. I don't. I am poor, so I mean we could do a hypothetical trade.
No, no, we're not poor. We have morals. We're not paying $25 for PFF.
Yeah,
There's a difference.
yeah.
Shout out to
That is.
PFF, but no, I'm
Yeah,
not paying
PFF has.
when I have a billion other mock similars that are free. No, we're not doing that. Um, Chicago is very interesting because obviously Genty's the one guy. At one point I thought Hampton might be. They're gonna go ahead and just sit there and take Hampton. I don't get that feeling anymore. I put
They
two
could
names
be
here.
a low key if Jaquan Brisker with the concussion. Maybe they're in the safety market. I don't know how
Mm,
they would feel. I mean, that
no,
to me,
I don't
if
see
not,
that one.
if not them, then I mean, maybe
I
just
look
they
at
take.
two names there for Chicago, and it's Tyler Warren and Kelvin Banks. And there's been enough smoke about Kelvin Banks being in the top 10. We've already had M'Boo and McCampbell go. Let's put Banks here at 10 for now.
Yeah, I don't hate it because I feel going offensive line wouldn't be.
Mhm.
I'm just curious how much, but hey, I mean, if worst case scenario,
You got to
they
help
want
the
to just.
quarterback, man. Either one way or the other, those out of those two moves, help the quarterback. That defense is a pretty solid defense. It's a pretty solid.
Yeah.
Matt Eberflus
Eh,
had them playing. There's a pretty solid defense they built, and they've added to it. But you complete that offensive line if you add Banks, just put him at left tackle. I personally would prefer Simmons over all of them, over all the
We'll see
tackles.
what the matter. I know he did get invited, or is he still going to?
I have to check because they update that daily because people are jumping out and jumping
Yeah,
in.
in and
It's
out.
actually pretty hilarious. It's one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen because they're hearing what their draft stock is and they're changing their mind and stuff like that. So it's actually pretty funny watching that kind of transpire.
Well,
But
okay, we can take Calvin Banks and then for Chicago. Now for
yeah,
49ers, they got Salah back. We'll kind of see. I know they lost some on the trenches. I think there's probably going to be. I think they're
it's gonna
also
be
kind of a Kelvin Banks team if
yeah.
Membu makes it, which I don't think Membu's going to make it anymore to them. But if
No,
Membu made it, Walter, I think to me like Walter Nolan, maybe Jade Barron, and then let's see what other. I mean,
Will
I would like.
Johnson as well in that
I would
group.
like Simmons for them
Yeah,
if
I don't see they've done a lot of homework on Walter Nolan. And I remember I decided to dig into 49ers side of the world and see, all right, man, who are they talking? Who are their names? Just so I know what's in front of me, because Dallas picks at 12, and Walter Nolan's name kept popping up. So that's an interesting name. Michael Williams fits a San Francisco edge, and I think he's a perfect complement to what's on the other side of Nick Bosa. And that's kind of the kind of guy like that Robert Saleh likes. You look at Jermaine Johnson and what he is, and I think they're very similar players in my opinion. I think they're going to debate both of those two guys. There's so many holes on San Francisco. It's amazing their fall from grace, and it's been amazing to watch, and I love it.
You would love to see
Um,
this. All right, well
but
now your Dallas Cowboys, number
who do
12
we pick
overall.
there?
So we took Michael
We
to
took
the
Michael.
49ers.
Okay.
So yeah, on the board we've got Walter Nolan, we've got Starks, Mike Green. I guess even looking at the receivers, I don't even like receivers. They
hmm
have Luther Burden, Abuka, and Golden. So if any
hmm
of those are the options that you're thinking for the Cowboys, then that's on the table.
So we've lost Michael. No corners have gone. Okay. So this is where it gets interesting. With McMillan gone, I think they could go a variety of different ways. And we're going to talk about this on my own podcast. But I'm starting to wonder because there's enough smoke coming from a different way. If people just assume McMillan's gone, we put Matthew Golden, and I was thinking the same thing. That changed again 48 hours ago, and now we're down to maybe six names that they could be in there. I think Matthew Golden's definitely somewhere in that discussion, but Will Johnson's definitely up there. And Walter Nolan's been there from day one. Walter Nolan was the first name I heard that they really liked. And I always like to stick with what I first heard, and he was definitely the first one I heard. And now today, actually within the last couple of hours, his name was hot. We saw James Slater tweet about that one, as well as James Pierce and Matthew Gold, which I don't buy. I don't buy James Pierce, not in the first round at least.
Yeah,
There's a lot
Golden
of
to me it definitely seems receiver. I mean, I think Nolan would be would really complete the front. I know you're getting,
I think if
obviously,
I think if Michael Williams was there, that's another guy we would put in there. I think Shamar Stewart, kind of the last of that group.
would
Um,
you, as someone who watched him at A&M, obviously,
mhm.
what are your, just in general, the thoughts on the A&M edge rushers? Obviously you had Shamar Stewart, you had Shamar Turner, Nick Score, and transferred. Even Walter Nolan, who transferred from A&M and,
Yeah.
had more of a productive season. Just, do you think it's really just the scheme of holding those guys back, or
It does for one guy, I feel. Nick Scorden played better in Purdue's scheme where he's a little further out wide instead of playing in the
more
shoulder
heavy-handed?
where A&M had him. And there's a lot of things going on at A&M. Give credit to Mike Elko to be able to provide what he was able to provide last year because Jimbo Fisher left a mess there. And a lot of things you could say about all the A&M guys that were there during the Jimbo Fisher era, especially the D linemen. Uh, a lot of them, I hate saying the word lazy. They just weren't, the work ethic wasn't there. The accountability thing wasn't there. And you kind of saw that early on, especially with Walter Nolan. So he was part of that transfer. Shamar Stewart, people say, does his athleticism show up on tape? But 100% does. You can't watch that guy try to chase down backside runs. His effort is incredible. Like you could see the first step just explode there. Um, I think his biggest thing is finishing, but also just awareness where the ball is. He has some of the worst vision for a lineman. He never knows where the ball is. He's worried about the guy in front of him. There's no instincts, natural instincts with him. He wins on just pure being an amazing athlete. And I don't know how he could develop that. That's what scares me a little bit about Shamar. But the traits are there. They're if you talking about drop a DN in the lab out of all these guys, him and Mike Hill will probably be at the top of the board there. So I get the intrigue about Shamar. In a scenario, I wouldn't mind it, but it will be more in a trade battle. I think 12 is a little too high. But he is. If you're asking me to pick one between Shamar and Michael Williams, I will probably bet more on Shamar. Just because I feel like I think Shamar plays the run better. I know people give Michael Williams that credit, but I think Shamar plays a bit run better than he does. So there is at least hope that he could do that part. But there's still a lot of growing up, even maturity, as a thing for Shamar. But for draft pick purposes, Matthew Golden's been a hot name, and there's just some things that when it comes to the Cowboys, and we talked about this on my podcast. I'm sorry I'm going long here. Um, where Dallas tips their hand every time where they want to go, and they do it with their 30 visits, and they do it with the workouts that they attend. And the workouts they attended this year heavily were Ohio State, A&M, Ole Miss. So you have all the Ohio State guys,
Mecca, Buka.
Jamar
I mean, I don't think they
Stewart,
would take a running back that early, but
mhm, and then Walter Nolan at Ole Miss. Who did they not go to? Whose pro day did no one go to? And it had a lot of players there. It was Texas. The only
hmm.
people they sent to Texas was the national scout and the assistant O-line coach, and he was more there for Hayden Connor, who was the guard there, one of the other offensive linemen there. So
Okay.
like at that time all the Matthew Golden stuff happened, like really took off. There's just enough smoke that I was like, okay, we got to buy it. We got to buy it. We got to eat this up. We got to take this in. But me and Tim, we know this team really well, and we're like, but they didn't go to the pro day. No one, like, I just don't see them taking a guy that they don't go to the pro day, and they know the Texas people well.
Yeah,
Jerry
obviously they
Jones's
have.
grandson played on that team a couple of years. He was a big influence when they took DeMarvin O'Shone. He's a big resource for anything coming out of Texas, so they know the program well. And I know he didn't play with Matthew Golden, but he does able to talk to some of those guys over there. So they did bring him on the 30 visit, but they didn't go to his pro day. So
So,
I'm gonna switch things up, Javal. We're gonna have some fun here. I'm gonna give you three names, and then I'll give you my final pick there. Walter Nolan with Michael gone. I'm gonna put Will Johnson, and then we're gonna go with Mecca Gabuka. And I think they talked today. They had their press conference today about their board's not set. That I call cap. We're 48 hours. Your board is set. The debate is if McMillan's not there, which direction you want to go. That's where the board's not set, and that's where that final stack is. And they've talked about this from the get-go, what they wanted to do. I think they're going to pick between Igbuka or Walter Nolan. And the wide receiver stuff has just been so smoke, especially when you talked about all the corners that they've looked at on day two and all the D tackles that they looked at. Let's pick Emeka Buka here at 12.
ooh, interesting, interesting. Okay, well, and Mecca Abuka, I know has been someone who we've wanted. Okay, so we had to do a part two because for some reason Zoom hates me. So last where we left off, Mecca Ibuka, Dallas Cowboys, we went spicy for it. So now Miami Dolphins at 13.
Ooh, Miami
Oh,
could
they're
go.
they're trading Ramsey soon, so corner can make a lot of sense. I think Will Johnson screams it, but they could also use O-line. I could see Calvin Banks. Oh yeah, actually we already took
You
Calvin
already
Banks.
took over. I will
Yeah,
say
but
this about Miami though, especially that head coach, he won't take anyone that can't run. So I don't connect Will Johnson to them at all. He just doesn't fit what they typically look for, especially
Jade Barron then, if they maybe want to get more versatility. I don't know what anything Weaver likes, but
I'm gonna have fun with this pick too. And especially with Kelvin Banks gone, they're they're looking at O-line help. They got destroyed in those trenches. We're gonna give them Gray Zabel.
I was gonna say either Zabel or Josh Simmons, but
I
uh,
want to give them some. They should be taking Simmons, but we'll
okay.
hold off on that one.
Jesus's team. I just want to troll and give them a punter, but
We
I
could,
honestly don't think it's Warren because that just doesn't seem like a position Ballard would take. Maybe he bucks the grain, but I could see. I know they signed a safety with. Oh, sorry. I know they signed a safety with Cam Bynum. Maybe they did go want to go for Starks as well. So
one thing
maybe
about
they did
Indianapolis,
lose another pass rusher. Maybe they. I know they drafted Latu, so
yeah. One thing about Indianapolis and what they love to do
don't
is
like SEC players a lot, or
no, they are a RAS score team.
oh, they're
They
ath
love, they
Shamar
love
Stewart,
the super
maybe.
athlete. We're gonna give them Shamar Stewart. That
So
I
and
know they're
when he
discussion to make
flame
that one.
when he flames out, I can blame it on the Colts. Perfect. I love that
Yep.
spot actually. I mean, if he Shamar Stewart versus Trevon Walker twice a year would actually kind of be hilarious. But now with the Falcons, I think this is Mike Green's floor,
My green.
unless they
I'm
really want it.
100% in on my green there. I love my green.
I know I've heard that they're also high on Mike Green for the
Yeah.
Cardinals.
The
I could
Cardinals are
actually see
interesting.
I could see them taking Walter Nolan here. I know they have a lot of bodies on the defensive line. They don't have a true star. Maybe they
I
take a
think they I,
corner.
I think they take Will Johnson.
Yeah, I was gonna say Will
I don't
Johnson
want
or
they're just
Walter Nolan.
yeah, there's a lot of connection there.
And then I know Will Johnson, Marvin Harrison in practice, Ohio State, Michigan connection. So that'd be
Mhm.
fun. I This to me screams Walter Nolan or Starks. But maybe Barron, but even then, I think Walter Nolan to the Bengals. If they're
I'm gonna
able to
give
get that upside, is there any other players? Maybe are you a Harmon guy? Maybe they could go
yeah,
Kenneth
that's
Grant,
I've heard that one from very early. I know
Derek
Derek
Harmon.
Coleman has there's in there he's medically flagged and there's concerns about him maintaining weight at a right spot. He can get a little heavy. So his weight kind of fluctuates. So for a lot of guys that happens a lot and it is a problem for guys that have that kind of issue. But Cincinnati doesn't care about certain things. They're just picking players because they don't have a scouting staff. They have
Yeah,
two
that is.
scouts.
I
It's
know
the
they.
head coaches run that thing. So Derek Harmon, boy, Seattle. See,
I know
if
they
Grayson
also
was on
they
the
love
board, I would have given
Zabel.
them
Yeah.
Grayson.
I don't know if they actually value because Schneider doesn't really go for interior offensive lineman that early. So maybe they do go like maybe they want to go for Simmons and then if he works out a tackle. I think if he's invited to the first round, the medicals must be better enough where he could still probably go. If teams are comfortable, it just takes one team to be comfortable with the medicals.
How
And we
about
know the
this?
tape is good. So maybe it's Seattle. I don't
I got you one. I'm looking at the board here, and there's value on this board. We're gonna give him Tyler Warren.
yeah, I mean obviously
Just,
not the
just pick the
outside
best
receiver they
player.
lost, but they did use
Yeah,
some
you
passing.
can't replace the big receiver. You got a big tight end though.
Yeah, I actually do like that a lot. I think for the Bucks, I know I think they're high, from what I've based off what I heard just from listening to Sycamore. I think they'd be in on Jahad Campbell a lot. Also
Oh
maybe in
man,
on Ezra.
if he was healthy, I think that's a slam dunk pick. But I don't know how they feel about that. The other name I will put in this range is Donovan
I was gonna
Ozaraku.
just say Ezra. Yeah, Ezra or
Because of the
Jahad are
health,
my
I
two
would lean
picks.
towards him.
You lead towards Ezra. Okay,
Yeah,
I know that he's talked about Ezra a lot as well, and
yeah.
that they wanted to get Schwarzenegger in the second, which I don't know if he makes it towards Tampa. I think
Hmm.
Schwarzenegger might go top 50 before they go. And now Denver. We can look at running backs. I mean, if Warren was there, that'd be a slam dunk. But there's been a lot of O'Mara Hampton smoke recently.
That one's
Um,
tough because you know someone that covers. I don't love the guy, but I respect him when it comes to the Broncos. Has been Albright,
Albright.
and he's not. He's the first one that said one Loveland is flagged medically, and he just doesn't see Denver going there, and he doesn't see wide receiver there either.
Hmm.
That's why he doesn't buy the trade up that Ian Rappaport came up with today about Denver moving up. I think if Denver wants to move up, they'll probably be for Genti if he's slipping, but that's not going
Yeah.
to be the
If
thing. But there's enough Omarion Hampton smoke there to put him at 20.
I mean, honestly, I do think that in terms of teams drafting a running back, getting it in the first round compared to early second to me makes this better. If you're able to hit and get that extra cost controlled year from the fifth round option, even if it is kind of a more expensive year, you're still getting a guaranteed year of him. You don't have to worry about paying him. You get an extra year just for that stuff. So now with the Steelers is
This
it's
is where
time
the
to
quarterback. Could be where the quarterback goes.
this has to be Shadur, unless they love Milrow more than Shadur or Jackson
They
Dart.
they've. I'm gonna give you a good one. They're trying to trade George Pickens. If they could get anything decent that they feel is worthy of it, they'll move uh, George Pickens. But with the Buka off the board, has Golden gone yet?
No,
Golden's not
Golden hasn't
yet.
gone. I still feel that this has to be cool. Like, I don't think Pittsburgh can walk out of the scenario unless they have a trade up. just
I feel like
because
Ibuka would have been the receiver. I don't see Golden there. Let's give him Sander. Let's
because
have
I
fun.
think at least for this scenario, Mike Tomlin is the only coach where he knows he's not threatened about Dion
Yeah.
taking his spot. He thinks he can rail him in, and you
Let's
just
do
feel that
Sanders.
the Steelers are going to draft a quarterback kind of just out of necessity more than need. Now here, I there's two Michigan players on the board, which Chargers
Yeah.
could use both of them. So do you want to go Colson Loveland or Kenneth Grant? Because I think that both of them would be very high on, not even just because of the Michigan connection, but just overall in terms of team needs
Kenneth
as well.
Grant.
Kenneth
Kenneth
Grant.
Grant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what we did for our last mock. I said if Kenneth Grant's there, it makes too much
Jade
sense.
Barron. We're not even going to discuss this one. They're very happy Jade
Does he
Barron's
meet the
there.
athletic thresholds for
Yes.
Gutekunst though?
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
he's
Who?
very particular. So, and then
Yeah.
for the obviously we're not doing trade downs, but I think
Yeah. This will be the first
this is
trade down
definitely the
team.
if no one trades down before Minnesota, they're definitely trading down just because they only have four picks, which the Jags actually have some of their picks from the
They
Brian
just signed two
Thomas
D
trade
tackles.
from the trade last year. I think you could still draft Nolan just for the future, even if you. I think that would be a great
Value there.
veteran spot.
Who are the corners though? Hold on. Who are the corners
Yeah,
there?
the for corners.
Because
I
Trey
know,
Amos
I
is
know
a rising
Amos.
hot name. And Benjamin Morrison's got the thumbs up. He has a degenerative hip issue, but teams feel okay about his health as well as Siobhan Ravel.
So is it just going to be more of like for Morrison a long-term thing that they're worried about?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. If you're even able to get 3, 4 good seasons out of him, then you take that pick. I mean,
Let's
maybe
give him
well,
Trey Amos for this one.
I do think Amos is going to go pretty high as well. I know I've been hearing a lot of good news
This is
for
where
the.
this is the good. I'll let you.
Is this the Tyler Booker spot? Well, they probably need to go more
No,
tackle more. All this. Oh, I don't want to give them Simmons, but they're
no,
kind of.
I don't.
Or would they go
I wouldn't give him
Connerly?
Simmons.
Would they go
This is
Connerly?
a Matthew Golden versus Josh Connolly debate.
I think they would go Connerly just because of what
They
happened
spent a
last
lot
year.
of time with him. It's very interesting that he's Golden got in this far, but let's give him Connerly.
I mean, I don't think it's impossible. From here, I think that this is definitely Jahad Campbell, Colston
Yeah.
Loveland, maybe Luther Burden if you want to try to
Don't
use. I think
don't
any.
sleep
I
don't
mean, this is
sleep
a really
on
good board for the
don't
Rams,
sleep
though.
on a quarterback there. Don't sleep
Honest,
on Jackson
do you
Dart
want
there.
to go spicy for chaos? Because I actually do think. Do you think that McVay would try to go more for Jackson Dart or develop Milrow? Because
Oh, McVay,
I could
Dart.
see McVay kind of just saying Dart fits the scheme better, but if he
Yeah.
wants to try to develop an athletic quarterback, maybe wants to try to do more things outside his current mold, maybe he
Let's
goes in
give
the
him
middle row.
Dart. Let's have
I'm
chaos.
I think Dart makes Dart
Best
for the
player available here. Baltimore. That's
Malachi Starks or Walter Nolan. I mean, honestly,
Joshua Simmons too.
oh, actually.
Let's do
Simmons is
Simmons.
perfect. Ronnie
Let's do
Stanley's
Simmons.
contract is expiring.
Yeah.
You have Simmons to play behind him, learn for a year,
This could be Walter Nolan
raise
right
his
here.
spots.
But they have a need at wide receiver and they're gonna trade. They want
Are
to
they going
trade.
to trade Jamison Williams?
He could be had for a third round pick. That's the thing. That's the vibe
It
around the
just
league.
depends
He
if
could be
they
had
want
for a
to go
third.
for a field stretch to replace him. Because I don't think Golden, like obviously when it comes to Jamison, you have concerns about like the consistency. But in terms of that big playability, because I think that Golden has the 4.29 on combine. He doesn't play that fast. Almaner can
I
do a
think he'll
little.
fit well there. Even if they decide to keep JMO, that's a damn good trio right there.
I
I
mean, yeah, they Walter Nolan for talent, or do you think? Because
Detroit, they are big character people, and like you better be a dog. And I don't think Walter Nolan has that in him. The one player I would argue here
maybe Nick
possibly
Scourton.
is Jahad Campbell.
I would think Campbell could make a lot of sense. I could
When they
also see
pick,
Scourton being kind of a if they watched like the Purdue film, they think
yeah.
Scourton because he does seem like I could actually. I mean, I think Jahad Campbell makes. I know they obviously drafted Jack Campbell, which they could have Campbell and Campbell.
I
Which
will give. Let's give him Matthew Golden
okay, yeah, I think
just because of the Jamison Williams stuff.
Huckham, I guess. Which
This is where the D
actually
tackle goes.
Dan Quinn trying to rein in Walter Nolan, I think makes a lot of sense. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you know Dan Quinn, you can
If
tell
there's someone
the
that could connect with Walter Nolan, kind of get him going, it's Stan Quinn.
and I think just
And
talent
that makes me
wise.
sick.
Yeah, talent wise, that would be great. Which
Okay.
Buffalo, I think they could be Starks. I mean, they're I know with between Taylor Rapp, Damar Hamlin, they're
No,
who their
I've
safety
been
room.
giving him Jahad Campbell. just because the Matthew Milano stuff.
Oh yeah, Milano is getting older
Um,
too.
and corner is the other one. I swear, every year I feel like we draft a corner for Buffalo. What the hell do these people go?
Kai, they took Kai.
Maxwell
I know.
Harrison.
Yeah, I've heard. Yeah, Harrison is a comp, which I don't. I guess the NFL's not really out. I know there was some
He's attending the draft,
character.
by the way. He's one of the
Yeah,
ones
he's
that
attending the drafts, which I don't love Hairston, and like, I think he's good. I do have
I
some.
like Harrison.
I guess late first. I mean, if he fits the scheme they want to run, I've seen this one connected. I think they could
Let's
use
give him
Harrison.
Harrison.
Okay, now, how do we? Who is the
They lost
highest?
Simmons. I
Who is the
usually give him
highest rated
Simmons.
punter on this? No, I'm just playing. As much as I want to give the
who
Chiefs, you do that
who
for
are
the
the
Eagles, though.
all the tackles are gone now at this point, right?
Uh,
Yeah. You're talking about
Donovan
Ursa
Jackson.
sneaking in.
I
Man,
yeah, I've heard some Ursher because they wouldn't need. I mean, maybe
were
they
they
did
the team that
lose
traded a
Joe
guard to
Tooney.
Chicago?
They did lose Joe Tooney. So maybe they could take an interior guy as well. I think they would like to get a tackle. Maybe they just take the best
Who
offensive
are the
lineman
edges left?
available. They know they have Scorton available. James Pierce is available. Could they use, I don't think they could use a line back. I mean, maybe they go
It's
Loveland
just
and try
Hayden
to
and
replace
Colton.
Kelsey, learn from him. It's not out the
That's an
completely out the
interesting one.
question.
That's
I
an
mean,
interesting one.
the more I think about it, honest, I think they could definitely would want to go trenches. But if they just get another pass catcher,
Let's give him Tyler Booker. It's just he's too good of a player to not be picked in the first round, in my opinion. I get everyone's
all right, who?
concerns.
It's Starks here.
Yeah, this
This is
just feels
Malachi
slow.
Stark.
It's either Starks or Nick scored in there. And the sleeper is one of the tight ends. And I know
I
they
know
love
they're trying
Mason
I know
Taylor.
they might be trading Goddard, but to
They
me, yeah,
love they love Mason Taylor from the
losing,
Duke.
losing, letting Chauncey walk just to have Malachi let the Georgia connection speak for itself.
Yeah.
I think this
I feel
makes.
good picking Starks there though.
Oh yeah, I think if he's there, then he 1,000% will be there. Like he just screams Eagle. I mean, if Michael somehow made it, I think that would be like to me, Michael would be the best sense for like his NFL projection, which I know you would hate to see
Uh,
that. So
Michael's gonna go early, bro.
yeah, he's gonna go earlier for sure. But
Early.
if
All those edges, and O linemen are gonna dominate the top 18. Like dominate the top 18.
go, so I'll recap the draft really quickly. So we've got Cam Ward at one, Travis Hunter at two of the Browns, Giants take Abdul Carter, Patriots take Will Campbell, Jags
Sorry,
draft
Jason.
Ashton Genty, Raiders take Armand Membu, Jets take Mason Graham, Panthers take Jalen Walker, Saints take Ted McMillan, Chicago Kelvin Banks, San Francisco takes Michael Williams, your Dallas Cowboys draft Emeka Ibuka, Miami takes Gray Zabel, Jesus and the Colts take Shamar Stewart. The Falcons take Mike Green. The
I hope
Cardinals
the
take Will
I hope the Falcons finally take someone that people like.
that
Although
pass.
Give credit to them, they probably got Michael Penix right.
Yeah, they actually kind of well, good
I know
thing they
people
took
hated it at the
Penix.
time, but he had his flashes enough to where like you have hope. There's something there. You
There's
have
something
hope,
left in.
which a
Yeah,
lot of people, the Giants would love to.
I
If
have
they know what
Michael.
they know, I think they would have took Michael Penix
It's
too.
okay. Giants are getting Jalen Milrow. So, um,
Yeah, I could see that
the
one.
Bengals took Derek Harmon with their lack of scouting staff. Seattle
Yeah,
takes Tyler Warren. The Bucks get Donovan Ezaraku out of Boston College. In the Broncos take the most probably obvious chalk pick, Amari Hampton at 20,
I
like in the
wonder if
late
Denver
teens.
would trade
Well,
up for
actually,
Tyler Warren if they see that happening though.
honestly, I think they would trade up for Tyler Warren yeah, Steelers taking Shadur, which I think if they take Shadur, they're gonna trade up for him just to be safe, just in case a team tries to trade up because.
That would be a big jump for teams coming out of the sack. The jump Pittsburgh.
Maybe if you want to try like if you are
Seattle's always willing to trade, so I will start there.
Seattle actually have trading, so maybe Kenneth Grant reuniting with Jim Harbaugh with going to the Chargers, Jahdae Barron playing for the Corners, I mean for the Packers, Trey Amos to the Vikings, Josh Conley to the Texans, Jackson Dart. We got three quarterbacks in here going to the Rams. Josh Simmons probably the steal of the draft. Is Simmons going to? That's such a Ravens. It's letting the best player fall to them.
Mm.
Like I hate it so much. It
I was like,
makes so much sense.
If I didn't give him Simmons, I would have given him Nolan.
Yeah, I was gonna say Simmons or Nolan just screams like, yeah, a talented trench player.
Starks too,
It's Matthew
maybe.
Golden, which we'll see if they trade Jameson Williams. Then the Dan Quinn, the Commanders getting Walter Nolan, trying to develop
throw
Turnbull
up.
Uber. Yeah, that could be a great pairing. Maxwell Harrison going to the Bills. We've seen him get a lot of first round buzz. And
Mhm.
Tyler Booker to the Chiefs, which they traded Joe Tooney. They have some spots open. They want to just keep the interior as strong as they can. And then obviously the Eagles take the Georgia player, Max and Malachi Starks. What a surprise. But yeah, man, we're basically just about 48 hours. At this point, we'll pretty much be it's we're recording out 10 o'clock on Tuesday.
And
So
how confident you feel in the first six picks?
um
I'm at
I feel
20%.
I was gonna say I feel 80% that it'll be like Travis and like the first three I feel pretty locked in. I don't think the Giants
First
will
three, I'm
take
100% locked in.
Will Campbell. I want to say there's if it's not Will Campbell, it's gonna be Genty. And then if it's
Yeah.
not go like that's the thing. I feel
Or
that's
Mimbu.
I get yeah.
Those four, five, six could easily
They could,
flipped
yeah, like
around in some
anything from
way.
4 to 7, I feel, unless we've heard maybe they're high on Jalen Walker. I don't know if they would take him that high unless Vrabel
The
just sees
Raiders.
something. Maybe.
I could see Walker going as high as six for sure.
So, and then we obviously I talked the discussion about Genty and just, do I think it's the most likely scenario? Maybe not. I think kind of what you're going with the first thing you hear is the most likely thing. I
Hmm.
still think Mason Graham was probably the first
It's a
most
smart thing to do.
I and even if you want to say that Mason Graham isn't this home run slam dunk defensive tackle prospect, even just getting the best, probably one of the better players with still a good floor at that defensive tackle spot, trying to really complete the defense. Because really the biggest thing with the defensive line, they would get edge pressure. They just never had anybody to collapse the pocket. They never had that for the past 2 years now. It's really been the Achilles heel. Pass rushers, quarterbacks can step in the pocket. Even Trevon was getting better. Josh Hazan will get pressures. They just don't have anybody to complement them. I think Mason still makes a lot of sense, but if it's
Yeah.
Genty, I've learned to live with that. I won't be mad.
Yeah, just
And
real
then,
quick though, I'll read you the summary. Just I can't read the whole report because it's just so long about Ashton Genty. Ashton Genty is a more complete and NFL ready back in the 2025 class. His blend of contact balance, vision, lower body strength, and soft hands makes him an every down threat and a player who can elevate any offense. While his pass protection needs refinement and his workload may be a topic of conversation, there's little doubt that Genty can become an immediate contributor and long-term starter at the next level in the right system, particularly one that values zone blocking principles and creative use of backs in the pass game. Genty has all pro upside. He's not just one of the best backs in the class. I think you can make a legitimate case that he's the best overall weapon. And I'll just add real quick to the pass pro stuff. He's more than when he's more than willing to step up in pass pro. Just his technique is just average right now. Who just needs to continue to refine his base, the timing of his hands, and just overall punch power to consistently win against some of these blitzing NFL linebackers and backs. He's fully capable of doing it. He's just not, I wouldn't call it reliable in that regard. I think, you know, Travion Henderson, who's my number two back, the best in the class at pass pro.
yeah, I
Um,
remember you and
if he
Tim
had
talking
that kind of
about
pass
Pass
pro,
Pro.
we're talking about a generational back. So
Yeah.
just cleaning those kind of things up will be kind of thing. And then I'll rate you the Mason Graham one. Mason Graham, I think he's one of the most agile and explosive interior defensive linemen in this draft, with the versatility to play across multiple spots in a four-man front. His lateral quickness, leverage, and motor make him an immediate contributor, particularly in pass rushing situations. While already a disruptive player, Graham needs to add core and upper body strength to maximize his effectiveness. I think a 2 to 3 year development period is expected before he reaches his ceiling as a high level defensive tackle. His performance against Alabama in 2023 kind of serves as a glimpse into the dominant player that he can become with the proper development. And it just goes to, his arm length. He lacks the arm length. I think similar to Shamar Stewart, just not on that level of Shamar Stewart. I think at times he focuses too much on the blocker in front of him and just loses track of where that ball is going. He has a lot of delayed reaction, especially on misdirection plays. And I think he will have growing pains, and this might tip the scale into the Genty just because this ends up becoming a hole, and to me it's a hole. It might not be the same for other people. I think he's gonna have growing pains in the NFL against the power running teams. I just think his anchor is just very inconsistent, and he can easily be moved off his spot when he's faced with double teams. He just needs to improve his base strength to just kind of hold his ground a little bit better. And it's a big reason why I have Walter Nolan ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they definitely will have Genty rated higher than Mason Graham. The question is just how much higher is Genty rated than Graham for them to say, okay, we're going to take the best player available versus, okay, maybe we want to
That's
stick
where you
to
get in
maybe more
trouble,
value.
though.
I mean,
Teams will
yeah,
tell you you don't
I
want to do tags. You stack a board, and this is why, remember way back when the Bijan Robinson draft and people were stacking the boards. I'm like, so you think Bijan is the 15th best player? And they're like, no, that's just where I'll take him. And I'm like, but where do you think he is overall? And they will tell me five. And I'm like, you need to put him at five.
No, yeah, I think they would have him rated highly. It really just like on a big board. If let's say Genty's our third ranked prospect, is Mason Graham their fifth or sixth ranked prospect, or is it
Mhm.
closer to like their ninth or tenth? That's where I really think the debate. Because if he's even fifth at like their if he's still high enough on their board where it's a small gap and they still have similar-ish grades, maybe they might lean Mason Graham more. But I think if there's a big enough gap, it's like, okay, well, let's go
Just
BPA even if
It
it
really
doesn't
just
like
depends on, yeah, on the team, on the way they have them stacked. I mean,
because
my stack is very different from everyone else's, and it's gonna be the same. The next guys is gonna be very different from mine.
yeah, I mean
Just
there's
like here at the recap at the end, it's Carter, Hunter, Genty, and then I have Josh Simmons fourth overall, and then Will Campbell five, Jade Barron six, Emeka Buka seventh, McMillan eight, Jaha Campbell nine, Walter Nolan 10, and then Mason Graham at 11, followed by Azaraku, Green, Burden, Golden, Mimbu, Ward, and Connerly is my final first round guys.
yeah, man. I mean with this draft, no one really knows, and
No.
I just can't
That's
wait
what
to
makes it
fast
fun.
forward. I can't wait to. I think this is probably the most draft in a while, where I just have so many questions. Like even last year, we didn't know we didn't know all the quarterbacks are going that early, but we knew
Mhm.
quarterbacks were
We knew
going.
where guys were gonna kind of go though. Like we knew where the receivers were gonna go. We kind of knew where some of the old lineman spots were, where the corner spots were.
Yeah, we knew offense
You
was going to
It's
go
just
early,
which
obviously.
one, but you knew the position. This year, all these teams could pick whatever they want. We all got holes. That's why we suck. That's why we're picking in the top 12.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, hey, man.
yeah.
Hopefully, I mean, I guess just really quick, even
Hmm.
just to talk a little bit about the general. Obviously, we don't know how the draft is, but just from a pure outside perspective, like, what do you think the chances that, like, okay, from based off even what you saw last year of Cohen, like, make Trevor playing in more of a, I don't want to say a McVay a scheme because they're going to try to change the scheme to be versatile. But
Hmm.
just what do you think of Trevor being paired with Liam Cohen? And obviously, you can think of him pre-draft versus now, but just how he can work alongside Brian Thomas Jr. and even if they don't take Genty, they're probably going to take a wide receiver in the second round,
Yeah.
maybe. So just, how do you think the offense can flow there's a few extra draft picks you probably want to throw in there because they're going to take a receiver for sure. They're
Hmm.
probably going to take, even if it's not at five, they're going to draft a running back and another offensive lineman.
Yeah.
But just how do you think this offense will kind of look based off what Liam Cohen and, now that they've got a true number one receiver, which has been a crazy thing to say, but they have the alpha, which they can build everything else around.
Yeah.
How do you think Trevor's going to fit in this offense with Liam Cohen?
Yeah. I think the number one thing I think Liam Cohen's going to look for is get Trevor's confidence back. I think when a quarterback has lack of confidence, it trickles down to the rest of the team. And there was times last year, especially after he took that hit, just throughout the year, just banged up, especially trusting his offensive line, which is why we wouldn't be shocked if they addressed the trenches either. Uh, Rebuilding the trust that he has in the rest of the group is going to be the excitement number one. Having stabilizing the front in front of him and making the run game a factor again for Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And it's a big reason why Genty makes sense for that group. You want to get your quarterback the most comfortable he can be there because it was a big clutch for Jared Goff in LA with Gurley. Gurley was in his prime when Goff was his second year there, and it's kind of a similar thing. We've seen the impact that Cohen's had with Baker Mayfield. Will Levis's best year was with Liam Cohen. So he knows how to get the best out of his guys. And I think if you have a good chance if you can hit this draft and really help that side of the ball, you could take that division from Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's so new. I don't want to say because I still think there's a lot of football to be played. I think a lot of it is they're gonna which receiver they get to fit the scheme because they're gonna want somebody who can play inside, play outside. They can move BTJ around the formation a lot. Somebody who's preferably a great run blocker. So, I don't. I would. Ibuka's they obviously went very early. I think he'd be perfect fit. There's been a lot of guys. There's been talking about Cohen even saying with the receiver, it doesn't have a lot of studs at the top, but they have guys who can contribute. So if I think in this scenario, they probably would go defensive line in the second round and receiver in the third, even if you could maybe get like a Alec Manor, a Jack Beck, maybe like Torrey. There's a lot of names they could get. I think this is a good draft for them. So they get a receiver before the fourth round. They could probably get a guy who could play inside and outside,
It
maybe even
really
like
just depends on what kind of receiver he's wanted to complement Brian Thomas.
probably just I think the first thing they're looking for that will separate a receiver is how good of a run blocker are you? I think they're going to look at that and say, if we can play this guy as a run blocker in a condensed formation, put him, sometimes the Rams, they put Ben Skowronek at like fullback and have him lead block and then throw him in the flat. I think they kind of want that kind of receiver where they can play some all over the formation, be very versatile, block his ass off. And then, after they try to do run blocking, do a play action fake, he's up the seam or however they want to play him. So, probably the best run blocking receivers that can also play inside and outside. I think that's really going to be their type. At defensive back, I have no clue what they're looking for. Same just in general, like defensive line. But I think for offense, we know that they're going to look for players who are intangibly rich, and no one really knows what that means other than I guess players who will do like the hustle players, I guess, who are gonna compete their ass off and make that extra block. I think if Travion Henderson is there, maybe they might take him. I don't know if he's great. I don't know like with the scheme and everything, but even you talking about his pass blocking, they're gonna look at him pass blocking and they're gonna say like, yep, that's perfect. That's the kind of attitude that
Yeah.
we need. So but yeah, even just one last question before we head out of here. And,
Mhm.
with the Cowboys, Brian Schottenheimer, new head coach, but kind of still some overlap. How do you think the Cowboys are going to look? If there's going to be any big changes going from Brian Schottenheimer, from Mike McCarthy? There's
Oh
going to
yeah.
be like do you think it's
There'll
just
be a
going to be
lot
a,
of changes. There's a lot of things that a lot of people don't know that really you ask how the heck was this team winning double digit games the last couple of years and just what McCarthy built. And there was a lot of tension with McCarthy and a lot of the players, especially in that 2020-21 kind of range. There's a lot of tension with Dak over the Amari Cooper situation. Mike McCarthy is the reason Amari Cooper wasn't on the team in the next season. And that kind of just soured the relationship altogether with the organization. And then it took a minute for Dak to redevelop that relationship. And at the end, they were okay. But the biggest thing with Mike McCarthy is it was his way, and if you had an opinion, he'll listen to it, but he never took you serious, which was a big no-no. And then Schottenheimer's been here since 2021. He was on the defensive staff in 2021 with Dan Quinn, and then transitioned back over to the offensive side. So the defensive players that are still here, uh, were part of that group that kind of pushed for him to be the guy hired. So he was a big factor in that 21 group. Uh, he was just on their butts about assignments and this is what you need to look for, kind of guy. He was the analyst for that defense that year. So they really got to enjoy working from him. They really respect him. And obviously, the offensive guys really like him. And communication in that building, culture is a big thing that they're doing. And the biggest criticism I have, and it was the biggest criticism I had after year one of McCarthy, is what are we doing here? What is the vision? The what is our identity in with Mike McCarthy? And with Jason Garrett, we knew what our identity was. It was we're gonna play. bend and no break defense, and we're gonna run the ball down your throat. And it worked. It worked because they knew what they could do. They had a thing they could hang off. They had the elite offensive line that could just run the ball down the throat with two elite backs that they had during that era. And that's why they were having the success they had some of those big years. And McCarthy was just kind of a mixture of things. And I think we didn't take the next step because those teams were talented. The 2021 to 2024, up until last year, were extremely talented teams. That team should have got further than they did, especially in 2022. Um, it was just a shame that was just wasted there. But Schottenheimer is going to rebuild this thing with the guys he has, but kind of add high character players there. And that's kind of what he's looked for. Which is why, we talked about James Pierce earlier about his name being thrown in there. I'll be shocked if that's a name that they put in there. Um, but Emeka Buka, on the other hand, is the opposite end, whereas out of all the people that everyone talk about, number one character, he's probably number one of the 250 players that are probably going to get drafted this weekend. So it's really it's actually really exciting because Brian Schottenheimer, he didn't go out and hire his buddies. A lot of these coaches, especially they've been out of the game as far as a head coach, they never had head coaching experience in their life. I was expecting him to go hire a bunch of these veteran coaches, like an Anthony Lynn, um, stuff like that, or just a random old line coach that's been around for a long time. This man he went to the college ranks. He asked around to those specific guys that he is friends with, hey, give me a name that no one knows that's a bright mind that no one talks about, that no one knows about. I'm looking for a young coach that just no one knows yet. And that's kind of how he got to our new wide receiver coach, Coach Ferguson. That's how we got Riley from Kansas State, guys like that. Eberflus was kind of a mixture. He wanted kind of more of a veteran DC, and Eberflus was a pretty decent option there, and he had the connection with previously being there for so long. So he kind of built his staff in a way that we weren't really expecting him to build a way, which is a positive move from where we were the previous regime. And it's a big reason why I didn't want Kellen Moore as the head coach. Because what did he go do? He brought Doug Nussmeier with him. He brought Scott Tolzien with him. And those aren't guys that you're gonna win with. Shout out to New Orleans. I just don't see it. That could be a real dumpster fire down there
Oh,
if, if they get things. I don't know if they're gonna be able to handle that situation down there.
yeah, I maybe we can talk more about even post-draft, the outlook of teams, but great
Yeah.
talking draft with you, man.
All
We're
right,
two
man.
days out, we'll
Yes,
see how
sir.
things
God
go,
knows what
but
happens.
yeah, man,
But
but
yeah,
that's what makes it so much fun. You really never
absolutely.
know. And then hey, if this was gonna make it such a interesting. I just can't wait to be tweeting in the group chat just for 3 hours straight, just of oh my
I'll be
God.
at the Star on Thursday, so we'll see if I'm even able to get in there if I have enough signal in there. It's gonna
Yeah,
be a lot of fun.
but yeah, man. So
All right,
I'll let
man.
you go. But real quick, let the people know where to find you if it should again. If it's been quite a long pod. So just if anyone knows how to contact you, listen to your stuff. Just
Absolutely.
plug your stuff real quick.
Yeah, the War Room Sessions podcast, they can be found on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's up on both platforms, so definitely check us out. Next year we'll have a YouTube channel. We have bigger plans for next year as far as breakdowns. Maybe we'll be able to show actual film breakdowns. So that's kind of the hope for next year. We're just going to continue to grow from there.
Well, yeah. Hopefully you can get on again for another pod. We'll talk ball, and then so yeah, I'll work getting this uploaded pretty soon. Hopefully I can share this early Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
But yeah,
Tag
man,
me in it
always
so I
great.
can retweet it and everything.
Yeah, it was always great just to go through our thoughts on this class as a whole, real first round, what we think of these players, how they'll go. Can't wait for our mock draft to be completely accurate. We're going to spoil
Yeah.
Thursday night for everybody. Sorry in advance. But
All right,
until
man.
I talk to you again, man. All right, man. Take care.